Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from OurSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie. Jamie, we did not have a game last week. That is not fun. I don't like that. I hope to not do it anymore because sitting around and watching games is fun, but when you don't have Notre Dame to look forward to, it doesn't have the same juice. But I did watch a lot of football this week, and I have a take for you. First of all, how are you doing? How you
I'm doing great.
Tuesday morning. Good. So I have a take. We're going to start off the show with a take. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. And if this is your first time listening, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We got to get that stuff going on. Get the show out there for more people. And so here's my take, Jamie. So I'm watching a lot of USC, right? I watched USC, watched Oregon. The Clemson game is kind of opposite. That's kind of a separate discussion that we'll have. But there's the Bama game as well, and the transfer situation. You know, I think we like it in terms of fairness and that sort of thing. But literally everyone who touches the ball for USC is a transfer player.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. Yeah.
I think everyone who basically touched the ball for Oregon is a transfer player. Bama's got Jahmyr Gibbs running for 200 yards. He's a transfer player. It's just kind of like it's kind of dumb, and I don't like it, right? And there's no way to like reconcile the fact that like coaches can leave, players should be able to leave as well. But it's dumb, and I don't like that. And it just kind of, it's like you're not building your program. Like, who are these guys? Like, it's almost it's almost like college basketball in a way where you never like the team is new every single year, and there's no building off of anything. You know, like there's a bunch of USC guys. They're going to go out, and they'll probably bring in some more guys. Oregon will probably be the same way in some regard. And so I don't know. I don't like it, man. What is your feeling on that sort of thing?
I guess I'm just used to it. Like I think that's here we'll just do this first from Patrick. I think that Notre Dame being a favorite. First of all, at number 16, that kind of thing. I don't think they're the 16th best team in the country. Those rankings are garbage. They're always garbage, but they're just like, you look at some of the teams that are ranked in the top 10 right now and tell me those are the top 10 teams.
Okay, so that's a good point. So the rankings are made up. They're not like someone just decided, right? Like it's not anything, like it's not indicative.
Then if you lose, you move down, and you win, you move up. It's not actually reflective of actually who's good and who's not.
Right. So that's why like you see, and it's not just SB Plus, like it's anyone who does a stat kind of analytics based preview has Notre Dame favored in this game, right? Like I think I saw Sagarin had Notre Dame like 16th per the computer model that he has and everything. So it's not the what BYU is ranked is not indicative of anything other than what people thought of them in the preseason, right? So that's the thing. That's where you always get like, oh, this is the a top 8 team against unranked opponent. An unranked opponent is favored. It's like, well,
yeah,
like I think it's different. But I will say it is nice. It doesn't feel bad. I'll tell you that. Especially after they started the season 0-2, that wasn't going well.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, I think it's a good thing if obviously, and if they didn't play as well as they did against North Carolina, because the line is based on how people are going to bet. And obviously they're trying to get people to bet. And obviously they don't want to lose money on that too. Right. So, I think, and you look at like North Carolina, they whooped Virginia Tech, and now the Virginia Tech's not a good team, but the way that it looked after, now that win looks better for Notre Dame because you're like, oh, like this is what North Carolina did against another ACC team. Like maybe Notre Dame is much better than we thought, right? And whatever. It's one game, but I think back to the transfer point. I'm just so used to, because I have to do all these like previews of the games, and I'm looking ahead at all these teams, and like every team has a at least a couple transfers that are significant players for them. Like, and in a certain sense, you have like, Notre Dame, Brandon Joseph is a transfer, right? But but the fact that him and like Chris Smith are like really the only. Oh, John Sott. That is a big one, right?
Blake Groupie,
right? So that is like, if you think about that, that is something that could, that is important. It probably doesn't, that's true. Whatever. I'm taking it. I'm not trying to take it. I'm not trying to downplay Notre Dame and whatever. I'm just downplaying the rankings. Yeah. But like, so BYU, Puka Nacua was a transfer from Washington. They're starting right tackle, Kingsley Suamata. He's from Oregon, like was a transfer from Oregon, was a highly recruited guy from Oregon. They've got a starting corner from Vandy, who's a grad transfer. And really they're like lower on the list of, they're starting running backs as a transfer from Cal. Like that's kind of what it is for a lot of these teams. Like you said, with USC, I think it kind of shows though that like, look at USC would be bad this year if they didn't have those transfers. They would be terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, yeah. So they needed those guys. And obviously then like probably Jackson Dart and whatever is still there. But they, what they did though is basically reshape their entire team based on that. And I don't think that's like a sustainable thing, but at the same time, like look at Michigan State, because Michigan State did it last year and they had all these guys and they hit because Kenneth Walker ended up being this great player for them.
Right.
But if you don't hit on a Kenneth Walker, it's not always going to be, you can't rely on that all the time. Right. Mm-hmm. And like USC, how many times are they going to get a Caleb Williams and a Jordan Addison? Like, it's probably rare, but I think it's, it's something that Mike and I talked about Power Hour this week. Like Notre Dame's got to play the game. They have to because
this is the point I wanted to bring up. So I'm glad you're going there.
Yeah. They have to play the game because you're just put yourself at such a disadvantage by not playing the game. Because even if you just think if Notre Dame was able to take just like 2 receivers this year, like, and they had like, and they really could only get a grad transfer, right? There's a kid who ended up going to Florida, whatever, the kid who went to Arizona State, right?
Pearsall,
that he wanted to go to Notre Dame, he couldn't get in, really, right? So that was like the harder part for him. So, and I'm not saying that guy would be like a difference maker, but it is one guy who would help, right? And if you get, and if you get a couple of those guys who could help, that can change the outlook of the offense. Or if you get just one guy, you're like, we're not sure about left guard, or we're not sure about this, we're not sure about that. And you get that one guy, that can make a difference. In Notre Dame, it's like, if Notre Dame was able to add like 4 more transfers to the team is automatically just upgraded. Yeah. Like in a big way. So, and I think that's just going to become a reality. And I think what happens too is like, in a weird way, if like Notre Dame wins out, they'll be like, nah, like the admin people, whatever, will be like, nah, whatever, we're good. Like, man, we went 10-2 or 11-2 or whatever, right? We're fine. But the reality is they should be looking at it like, man, maybe if we added these guys, we could have had a chance to beat Ohio State, or we definitely would have beat Marshall, right? And I think that's the way to kind of look at it.
So Ricky Pearsall has 13 catches for 245 yards and a touchdown. I think Notre Dame could use production like that.
I think they could.
Yeah. And as I was listening to this, I wanted to bring it up because on Power Hour, you guys were talking about it, and you're talking about after this year, Foskey is he's off. He's off. He's going to go to the NFL, and then there's no obvious solution behind him, right? Like I think when Dalen Hayes moved on, it was like, okay, Foskey's in the wings, right? Like you had a natural kind of someone we're going to put in there, and you don't have that next year. And I'm thinking any other program, like top program, is taking care of this in the portal. Any other program, it would find a way. And it's difficult because you need a grad transfer, and you can't. There's no sophomore who's like, I want to get in the portal and go to Notre Dame to play Viper, because the last few Vipers they've had are pretty good, right? And they just had someone get drafted high in Isaiah Foskey, right? It's a really good defense for someone like me, right? Yeah. It's not just the grad transfer guy, because even the wide receivers, right? Like people say, like, okay, who could they have gotten, right? Who didn't they get? And who was in the portal that they could have gotten that they didn't get, or whatever. And it's like, okay, true, but at the same time, like, it's the guy who doesn't enter the portal because he can't get into the school. The guy who wants to go to Notre Dame but can't because I'm a sophomore. I don't have the grit, like I don't have the credits, or the credits won't transfer, or I'm a junior. I'm about to be a junior, like I'm a 1-year guy, and they can't come over. Like Jordan Addison is not an option for Notre Dame. Even if he wanted to come to Notre Dame, he couldn't do it. So like that's the problem. And to me, like Notre Dame can't be a non-NIL team in terms of collectives, and also we're not also letting in transfers. You're getting beat both ways, right?
Yeah.
You can't get the top recruits in to mitigate the fact that you're not bringing in the transfers, and then you can't bring in the transfers because you're not bringing in the top recruits because of the NIL stuff. And there's some guys in the NIL. It's just like Notre Dame's not going to be an option because the schools they're up against, they're offering millions of dollars. And Brent Smith, like, yeah, Josh Burnham, right?
I think Josh Burnham's going to be a very good player for Notre Dame.
But
right?
It's like we need like Notre Dame needs a real solution next season.
The thing is that you don't know that he's going to be a dude next year. You just don't. I mean, because he's not playing this year. And he might be a guy, like I was extremely high on him as a recruit, higher than anybody as a recruit. And I thought he was probably going to grow into Viper, and they already made that transition for him. And I think that's smart considering, you know, the situation there and for him, right? But so now all of a sudden, is he going to be the guy that you expect to start and also be like Isaiah Foskey level good? Like, because that's what you kind of want out of that position. And can he be that? I don't know. I mean, he's redshirting this year. So I don't know. Like, maybe he will be just an absolute dynamite star already. But even Foskey in his like redshirt year after he kind of like really flashed was not the guy that he is now. He took time to get there. Right. So it's just that's not a good situation to be in. And I think like, so, and that's why I mentioned Jordan Botelho, like they might need Jordan Botelho next year. And he hasn't done anything. And also it was a guy that I was extremely high on, but he has not playing really, right? Like barely playing. And when he is playing, he's just not, I mean, he's not getting enough of a chance to do anything when he's playing, but just, he's also not earning enough time either. He's not so good that they have to get him on the field. And the problem is that they're probably gonna need him. Like it's a big problem that, you're probably like, man, I wish Kahano Kia could come back from his mission a year early to do that. Like that's a problem if that's what you're talking about, because you don't even know with Kia if he would be ready. Right. So, and there's just not a lot of guys. Like they might be able to get somebody, right? Like I'm sure I'll look at a bunch of like names and stuff of guys that could go, but like even for like a grad transfer, and there is like a top-notch guy, like you're going against everybody for that person, right? And maybe they see the opportunity at Notre Dame, it's perfect, but there's also got to be like a fit, and there's got to be all this kind of like, so it's not as simple as just like go get somebody in the portal, whatever. So I think and that's the other thing too, is that like they need to get a Viper in this current class too. And all that. And I think that's important. And I think Preston Zinner might eventually be a Viper, but you don't want to go into this. You don't want to sign this class and be like, Preston Zinner is the only guy that we have really as a projected edge. That's not what you want.
Right. Because he's not projected to to be
not an immediate impact.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. So anyway, that was kind of what struck me during the game. Or during like watching the games, it's like, man, Notre Dame's really got to take care of this problem. The other part too is just like looking at them. I thought USC, like they really needed Jordan Addison. If they didn't get Jordan Addison, I think they'd be in a real bad way because he
is a game changer.
They are 29 of 34 throwing him the ball, right? 85%. And
that's incredible.
It is very incredible, right? So they are very dependent on him. It actually like heartened me a little bit. Like, they have a very glaring need for him to be great, and he has been great. And Caleb Williams is also very good, so that's good for them. But they're not as crazy explosive as I kind of thought they were originally. I thought Clemson was. I tell you this, I texted or I was messaging with the OFD guys while watching that game. I think if Notre Dame's undefeated going into the Clemson week, then I think Notre Dame's going to beat them. I'm not super impressed with Clemson as the type of team that like Notre Dame can't beat. They're not like a top 5 team where it's like they don't have any weaknesses or anything like that. I don't really trust DJ. I love the fact that they're trying to run him, right? That would be great if they tried to run him against Notre Dame a bunch. And then defensively, it's hard because they're without Brzee and he's such a big part of their team. But in at the back, I don't think they're overly impressive. Like I was not impressed with NC State at all. So I think, and it's not that Clemson's trash or anything like that. I just think I like the matchup that Notre Dame has against them.
I mean that to me is, I don't know about the matchup because I think it's actually like they are the defense has been underwhelming for them this year compared to previous years. And I think you do see a big difference with missing Brent Venables. And then obviously they're playing a lot of young corners and those guys are struggling right now. So, I mean, run defense, 4th in EPA per rush, 4th in yards per carry against, and 21.5% havoc rate. Like they're still
no. To be clear, I don't mean the defense. I don't mean the matchup in terms of like strength versus weakness.
Yeah, but they're not. But they have flaws. They have flaws.
Yeah.
So like they're 92nd in EPA per pass, 76 in sack rate this year. They're just not getting to the quarterback the same. And I think that is largely like some of the guys are underwhelming scheme wise too. And then they've given up 22 receptions of 20 or more, 121st in the country. So and that's a lot of those corners have struggled, right? But you got to have, is Notre Dame got the receivers to kind of overtake that? But I definitely think and offensively, I think, yes, DJ is much improved. But I also don't think they're great. They're just fine. They're just fine. Yeah.
Well, I mean, by that game, Tobias is going to be that's when he's going to be activated, right? All right, so let's transition then to the kind of the yesterday's happenings with Notre Dame. Depth chart comes out. Obviously, the big news is Ben Morrison is now listed as the starting corner without an or, just CB1 for Ben Morrison. So, which is funny because I noted on Twitter like 2 weeks after he was actually starting games. Yeah, so we started last 2 games. Listed as such on the it's like one of those when you get a new job, it's like your probation period. It's like you're the starter, but we're not going to actually you're not actually the starter. So he got through his probation period as the starting corner, and now he's the guy. It's interesting. So the fact that he got 51 snaps last week and Clarence Lewis gets 10, I feel like they got to they might want to move Clarence over to get some reps at safety now. Because I feel like it's kind of dumb that he wouldn't play at all. 10 snaps for Clarence Lewis is just kind of like, we need to get more out of him. He's not a guy. It just seems like he's not a guy who shouldn't be playing. And I
think that was partially like he was in and then he got roasted.
He
So
did get barbecued. He did. That is true. And then the 2-point play, he was also kind of not in a good spot, right?
Yeah.
Like they went for 2. He didn't react to the flat, and he was a flat defender. And they should have converted, except it was a bad throw. Yeah, so it was a bad throw. So it's go ahead.
I think he is going to play safety next year would be my guess. And I think they won't move him this year because one, just like, I mean, he's basically a play away from being a starter again, right? Like, so I think that's something. And I don't think like prior to this game, I thought he obviously played well in that Cal game.
Yeah.
And I think he has played pretty good this year. It's just Morrison is just better, right?
Yeah.
So I think that with Lewis, I imagine him. Yeah, I think that's exactly the point I was making, Mitchell. Totally agree with you. I think that with safety this year, I just think that they have too many bodies right now. So if he moved there right now, he just would be getting zero. Like he needs to just stay at corner right now. And then I imagine like in the spring, that would be something that they look at, especially given that whatever. But I think given like who they're going to lose, projected to lose after this year or whatever. So, but yeah, like I think, Ryan Barnes could be whatever he was get if he's still around. Obviously that's a guy that could get some reps of safety. And it's funny because Freeman mentioned about X Watts. He's like 100% of safety now. And which just made sense if they were giving him reps all the time. It's not like he was cross training. Like I don't think anybody kind of thought that was actually happening anymore.
Right.
That was just camp. They didn't have enough bodies. Right. Yeah. And he's played and whatever. And I think I don't think he's played great. But I think he's, like looked close to me. Like he looked close to like doing some things. And I think he's a guy who needs to play more. And I think if you told me that by the end of the season, X Watts was like getting as many reps as any other safety on the team, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I think he looks like he's coming on.
I liked him. I thought, the play against the deep ball, and Marcus Freeman referenced it, talking about the angle he's taking. It's a what's it called? It's a lack of experience of like where you are in the field and what types of ball can be thrown. It's different when you're playing against a guy like Drake May, man. Like you have to, he can get it over the top on a line. I mean, Drake May's a special player. He's a really special quarterback. So he can get it over the top on a line, and that you do have to adjust your route on a player like that, right? But that's inexperience and not really seeing someone like that. So they do have a lot of, I feel like they have a lot of good options. It'll be interesting to see like if Clarence, like he might have to try to forge a role like the Bracey slot kind of role next year, like just kind of a utility player, because they obviously like Mickey. They obviously like Morrison. I don't know that Cam can go to the NFL, right? Like
not right now. No,
he's seeding reps. So that's, I mean, I guess in that sense, like maybe it is a good idea to go. I don't know. I see him coming back. I guess.
I don't think he's going to get feedback this year that would suggest that he's going to be a high pick based on this year. I don't think he's played bad at all. Like he's had some bad plays, right? But I think you pointed it out on Twitter, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that he's doing well, right? It's just
9 of 24 against. Those are really good numbers,
right? So I think that I think what will likely happen next year is that Mickey will be that nickel, and because you have to basically like nickel is base now, right? So, and
especially for this team,
and then I think Mickey will be the nickel next year, and then that kind of like opens up, because obviously that's all Bracey this year, and then that'll open up things on the outside. And I mean, who knows? You might have another freshman kind of pushing there too, right? With Micah Bell or Christian Gray too. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of like the depth that they have in the secondary.
So next year, I mean, They really they got to tell Peyton Bowen, like, look, man, you've got a real chance because
He's got a real chance to
because
play early, and
Houston's gone and DJ will be gone, and I think
Joseph, even if he has a bad year, might just go. I think he might just go.
Even if he did go, or even if he did stay, he can play next to him.
Yeah.
You know, he can play next to him. They can put him because they want to put Joseph near the line of scrimmage anyway. So Peyton could be the deep guy. You would have Morrison, you would have Mickey, you would have Cam, you would have Ramon Henderson, you would have Clarence Lewis, and then it would be basically Watts. It would be him against those guys. And I just think there's a great opportunity to be around. Like that would be the most talented secondary Notre Dame has had in a very long time.
Yeah, I agree.
I honestly couldn't even think. Let's think about this. They haven't had a depth like this.
Depth, no.
In the secondary in a very long time. I mean, you'd have to go back to Holtz, probably early 90s.
Because if you look at that 2018 secondary, which was a really good group. I mean, you have Troy Pride and you have Julian Love at corner. Easily the best. That's easily the best starting duo.
Yeah,
Notre Dame had at corner during the time. I think it was better than Bennett Jackson and Kavare, even though that was a good corners, but not at the level of Julian and Troy. And then I think Aloy and Jalen Elliott, that's a really good starting four, but they didn't have the depth behind.
They didn't have him behind. Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this or get into Freeman at the press conference. Your thoughts on Marcus Freeman talking about receivers asking for feedback? Sounded like something I would hear at my corporate job, not a football coach.
I think that's pretty typical. That's a very football thing. It's, you have to go and if guys want to play, that's the thing. You need to say, what do I got to do to play? Right. And, what am I doing? And especially if you think that you are practicing well enough and you're not doing, what do I got to do to earn more time? Coaches want that. They want to know, and they want to know whatever. And they don't always have time, during a practice to tell you, exactly what you're doing wrong, or they think they're telling you, but maybe the message isn't coming to you as clear as you think it is, right? You're I don't understand. I just beat this guy on one-on-ones. Why am I not playing over this guy? It's well, you need to learn what you got to do to get better. And that's every level of football. That's what you do. You find out well, I need to block better. I need to know exactly. I'm not running my routes at the right depth that I need to. I'm not doing this. It's that's just part of football.
I agree with you. And I think at this level, every player, because they have they're so close to their position coaches and that sort of thing, they spent so much time with that. Every player deserves to know exactly where they stand and why they are where they are. Right. So that's when you have that's when it's we ask for feedback. It's if you don't know, right, why am I not playing? Go ask. You need to find out. You need to be proactive about your situation, right? Because a coach is going to reward your aggressiveness and your attentiveness to the team. Because no, man, there's lots of people here. There's lots of people here. You're making a lot of comments, Brent. So I'm the comments are for everyone for the chat and that sort of thing. But so if you have a question, Brent, then you put up a question, I put it up. So if you have a question, put it up and we'll put it up here. But yeah, so everyone deserves to know where they stand with the team and where their position group and that sort of thing, and while they're not playing. So I see CMAX said trouble coming with the portal. I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about that.
That's just you making that up.
Yeah,
that's just not don't put stuff out there. That is not a thing. That is whatever. And yeah, there you see guys, true freshmen playing. There's plenty of guys who aren't. You know who's not? CJ Williams. Right. And that's a guy who, and I think if he was playing at Notre Dame, he might be playing right now. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a ton of guys. There's a lot of guys that are not playing or playing but not getting the ball. And I mean, this is every program is dealing with this, and it's managing these personalities and managing these guys too. But like, I don't think like Tobias Merriweather, I have heard nothing to the fact that he's like unhappy or like I deserve to be playing, or he's one of these guys who is like that, or he has that kind of attitude or anything like that. So yeah, just don't throw that out there in the air. I think that's
I haven't heard
think
anything.
that's
I haven't heard anything like that, and it would surprise me, frankly. He doesn't seem like that type of person, and like right now, right? Like in terms of like first 4 weeks of his freshman year, like I just don't see that. I do think it's interesting. I'll throw this up from Patrick. So if anyone's watching and you haven't, I did an interview with Troy Pride last Thursday, and if you haven't watched it, I recommend going back and finding it, because he talks about this. He talks about playing the freshmen, and I don't know if if it was a Dell thing, because now Dell's not here and we're having the same conversation, right? And Brian Kelly's not here, we're having the same conversation. And Troy, what he brought up was he wanted to see Notre Dame basically be a little bit more willing to let freshmen make mistakes in games, right? And he said at the time, Notre Dame's mindset was make me trust you, right? Make me trust you to put you out on the field and do the things that you're supposed to do, right? And the implication there is if it's very, if you're not on top of everything all the time, then you're not going to get to go out there, because we're not going to put you out there and make a mistake like not going in motion and getting someone hit and that sort of thing. The one thing I would say is, like, if you want to get someone involved, there is a way to do it, right? The way Notre Dame did with Chris Brown in 2012. The Oklahoma game wasn't the only time they tried to hit him deep. They tried to hit him deep a lot early in that season. They just missed it. But it's not like he was out there, getting a bunch of snaps. It's like they would put him in. I think everyone kind of knew, okay, number 2's in the game. They're going to try to take a shot. And they did. And he was always open. And they just missed it, right? I do think there is a place for that. Like, I do think there is a way to say, hey, we can't trust you. Maybe we don't trust you to like run a whole series out there and line up every single time and go through the check and do all the checks with me, and that's going to be perfect. But we do trust you to do this thing, right? I do think there is a place for that. Maybe we'll see it out of the bye, right? Like, the problem with Tobias or anyone who isn't playing, who we've never seen before in a game or given like a real chance in a game, is it's so easy just to say, well, play him. Like, it's so easy for us to say, play him. You have to play him. Jalen Sneed, play him. He can't. Jack Kiser's not making plays. So Jalen Sneed, go play him. See if he can make plays. It's so easy for us to say that. But we have no skin in the game. We have no stake in it. Yeah. We don't have to run a team. We don't have a locker room.
Our
of guys
job isn't on the line.
Yeah, like, so we have no information, like literally none. Like, if Marcus Freeman was on this pod, or Chancey Stuckey was in this pod, and we would ask him, why isn't Tobias playing? And he would tell us, and we would probably say, makes sense. Like, it's just, we don't have the information and we don't know what their logic is, right? We only say, like, we can only look at the fact that they don't have a lot of wide receivers and this one isn't playing.
Well, okay, so here's another thing, and this is something that our buddy Chris Wilson has brought up. This is very similar stuff what's being said about Jordan Johnson, right? And obviously he was extremely highly rated recruit, very talented player, but I mean, he didn't play because they couldn't trust him. And I don't think it's the same thing with Tobias Merriweather at all, but I'm just saying that's in a similar situation where people's like, obviously this guy's like too talented not to play. And then you see like, oh, he's like not doing anything at Central Florida.
He has not gotten on the field yet.
Yeah.
For them this year. And he didn't get barely any run last year.
Yeah. And I don't know. And I think, you brought up the part about like styles. last year, and it's something that I've brought up too, that look at the early games. And should he have been playing earlier? I don't know. Like, we're not at practice. We're not seeing like how he's practicing every week, how he's preparing, whatever. But obviously, post-bye and what they did after, he became like a much bigger part. All of a sudden, then you get to the bowl game, he's like having a breakout performance, right? But they found a role for him in that spot. And I think that's the sweet spot that you're talking about. That's what you want to be able to see with Tobias, where whether or not you're just like, okay, like all you got to do here, Tobias, is no matter what the call is, you're running a bubble. You're running a bubble, and we're just going to get like, so something like that. Like, and if that's like 5 plays a game or whatever, fine. Right. And maybe he only gets 1 target or something like that. Right. But I think that's what you would hope to see. And people want to see it because they're not getting anything from the other receivers, really, right? Outside of Styles, right? So I get it. But, like, I mean, look, they're playing Raritan and Stays a ton. And those guys are going to get that. That is something that I think you're going to start seeing. Maybe not with Stays as much because he plays a little bit less than Raritan. But, like, I think it's a matter of time before they throw Raritan the ball. Like, that's going to happen soon.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Brent, here's the thing. Here's the thing is that question you're asking is placed in a vacuum, right? Tobias has a skill set that no one else has, right? On the team, the size and the ability to go up and get the ball. They can't throw anyone a back shoulder, right? And Tobias is that guy, right? In a vacuum.
Yeah.
And from that point of view, he should play, and they should find a way. They absolutely should. But it's asked in a vacuum. And so we don't have the other information. We are assuming that Tobias is doing everything that he can to get on the field otherwise. And we don't know that that's true. We assume it is, but we don't know. And for me, like personally, just what I know about him and what I know about his family, this is not like Jordan Johnson. Jordan Johnson was doing a lot of things that no way we're putting you in the game, right?
Yeah.
Not going to class, attitude. I don't think Tobias is any of those things. Like I do think Tobias is working at it. Okay. Like, so that's why I kind of think, like, I think we are going to see him eventually. Like at some point soon, I think we are going to see him get reps. Okay. So that's just my opinion. I don't have inside information on that. That's just what I think. But every question that I see is Raritan's playing and Stays. Why can't they play? Ben Morrison is playing. We don't have any of that information. And so
also the coaches want to win, guys.
Right. So like
they're not making selfish decisions to not make everyone happy. You know,
there is a reason for it, and we don't know what it is, and they're not going to tell us. And so it's just like, I think the two of us, want the same thing that everyone else wants. It's just that we have to be honest about the fact that there are reasons guys don't play and some do. And the reason is they just don't feel like he's ready to contribute yet. They don't feel like he's ready above everyone else. That's just the fact of it. It's not my opinion. I can't say that that's correct. All I'm saying is that's why it is. That's people say, why isn't he playing? I'm trying to give you a reason why he's not playing. It's not that I agree with it. That's why I think that is the case. So that's all it is. I pray that he plays like 20 snaps in the next game and catches 3 or 4 it catches 3 or 4 balls and blows up, and we don't have to talk about it, because I hate speculating on why people aren't playing when I don't know anything about them. It is very difficult, and I don't like it. That would be a reason. I don't think it's the reason in this case. I just don't think that's true.
There's could be a myriad of reasons, right? Like, just you could see like a guy drop balls in practice all week, and you're like, well, this guy didn't practice very well. Or like, man, he screwed up this play I don't know how many times in practice. Like, we can't put him under. He's not blocking well enough, right? Like, thanks. Welcome.
Trey Sense. Yeah. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much. subscribe, hit the like, come back Tuesday, Thursday, every week. We're here Tuesday, Thursday, every week. Post game show after every game, like 5 minutes after. I do a morning after show. You're gonna want to stay in, man. I appreciate you bringing in the show. Anyway, Jamie, continue.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why someone might not be playing, right? And it could be, it's like, we talked about how like Lindsey playing too many snaps, right? But I think the reason why he's playing that snaps is because they have a trust that he's going to do his job on every single play, right? And that's really what it comes down to. So, sorry, I'm getting like it's bad feedback right now. I don't know.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
I can't hear.
Okay, it might just be me. But
Michael Morrison was not, by the way.
He was not.
Mickey was. Mickey
was
was early enrollee. Morrison was not.
I mean, and then once again, too, Michael Mayer, not an early enrollee. Kyle Hamilton, not an early enrollee. Chris Tyree, not an early enrollee. All guys who played and contributed a lot as freshmen, right? So it doesn't matter if you're good, you're good. Sean Crawford came in. I knew he got hurt in that first year, but he was the starting nickel before he tore his knee in camp, and he is a guy who came in the summer, right? Like, it doesn't matter when you come in. If you're good enough, you're going to play. Eli Reardon, late too, right? And you know what? Maybe Eli Reardon wouldn't be getting this opportunity if Mitchell Evans was healthy and then Bauman didn't hurt, whatever. But I can promise you this: like, Mitchell Evans is having a tough time becoming tight end too, because Reardon is playing so well, right? Yeah. And that's how it is, right? Like, they don't just automatically give it to the older guy. If a guy's playing well or practicing well or whatever, they're going to keep rolling with those guys, right? So I don't know. And like, I mean, the same thing on defense, right? With Prince Kollie, like, it's like people are like, man, this guy needs to get out there. And it's like, well, they're starting Ben Morrison at corner over a guy who started and wasn't really playing bad. Lewis wasn't playing bad or anything either. So if that's the case, why wouldn't they start? Well, chances are they're like, they think the other guys are better, or they're practicing better, or they're doing more, or whatever. And maybe they're wrong. I think you could point to some cases. You're like, a handful of cases where you're like, they should have played this guy more. Like but literally the only one I can think of in recent memory was Andrew Trumbetti was getting more snaps than Khalid Kareem in 2017. And I was like, this is obvious that Kareem is a better player than Trumbetti, but he's a veteran and they were rolling with him. But then as the season went along, then Kareem started playing more, right? And that's just kind of how it is. And sometimes it goes like that. And maybe that's not fair, but that's just most of the time, guys aren't playing because they're like either not good enough, not ready, or some other kind of reason off the field.
Yeah. I want to get up this comment. How do you get more snaps for Prince Kollie?
This week, right? Again, I mean, this is the perfect example again, right? Because Bertrand is out. So I think last game they started, Morrison and Kiser. So that means that, Collie's in on the next group, right? Which he was in this group. And I think he was fine. He was just okay. I know he walked into a tackle for loss. That was nice to see him. But I think he was fine in there. But it's like, if he comes in and makes a real, impact in those snaps, then he's going to get to play, more and more. And that's whatever. And then we don't know, too, like how a guy's grading, like, oh, he was supposed to drop like hook curl at this depth and he didn't get the right depth or whatever. So there's all those kind of factors, too. So, I mean, I don't think they're doing something where they're like, man, Prince Kollie's too good of an athlete. We don't want him out there. Like, there's nothing like that, right? Like, I think if, that's the thing. It's like people are like, man, it's so obvious. They should just play Kollie and Jalen Sneed. These guys are like faster than the other guys. There's these super highly ranked guys. And I think it's just easy to say like, man, I wish they would play those guys, but it's usually not as simple as that.
Yeah. And it's like you mentioned the grading, like we don't know how, like I remember last year against Cincinnati when Pine came in and played a lot better than Cohen had in that game. And everyone's like, we got to start Pine. I said it, you said it. And then we had kind of heard on the side, like, Pine graded out like not very well, and so it was like that's why he's not playing. And so we don't know how these things are graded or what they're supposed to do and that sort of thing. So, but I think, given the fact that Bertrand's out, Bauer's banged up, I think we're going to see more of him. Like you got 10 snaps last week. Let's see if it goes up this week, right? It should be a pretty good matchup for him because of the, he's an athletic guy and you want a good athlete going against BYU and that sort of thing. So, and Derek Galloway, I see your comment here about Deion Colzie. I'm not going to put it up because I don't want to, that's kind of like someone said something about a player and that sort of thing. I think we have heard something similar in that his intensity level needs to go up, right? He needs to show he wants it a little bit more, a little bit more hungry. So we've heard similar, but that's kind of a player on the team said from someone else. Like, I don't know. Like I don't want to put that up. I appreciate the comment and I understand, right? And I understand you bringing information to the show. It's just like, that's a little too rumor-ish for me to put up here, but I see the comment. And I appreciate it. Don't you believe Kollie was the best gap fill player? I mean, I know he had the one play where I don't know if that was a run blitz or what it was. He got in the backfield. Really
I mean, they were just calling that cross dog that they always call. And it literally just happened to be the perfect play at the right. I mean, if he had made that play on his own, I would have been like, heck yeah, like get this guy out there more. Right. Cause that's like a great read. If he's all of a sudden, reading and he's shooting backside through that vacated guards gap, like, yeah, that's a big time play. But no, it was a called blitz, just happened to be perfect. It was the perfect call at the right time. And I think the rest of the time you could probably say, like, if other than that play, you'd probably say, did Prince Kollie play? Like, you know what I mean? He wasn't standing out by any sense. I don't think he was I probably wouldn't say he was the best gap fill player or whatever. And I mean, I guess that means
I don't think he got enough.
I don't think he was bad. He wasn't bad or anything.
He didn't get enough run for us to really know.
Yeah, it just I couldn't say. And I mean, I will say I don't think the linebackers have been good this year. So I think that's something that probably could give Kollie more of a chance. But I also think that like North Carolina was Maris Leoffel's best game, and not just in like his like spy role. I thought as an off ball linebacker, it was his best game too. So I don't know, and if Leoffel's a guy they trust more to do that kind of stuff, then is Kollie, how many reps is Kollie going to get there? Right. Yeah. And Bauer's gotten less reps as the seasons went along. So even with last game, Kiser took all like those Bertrand reps really. Right. So I don't know. I linebacker could be really interesting because I think like I wouldn't be shocked if Kollie by the end of the year, you're like, oh, he's playing a lot now and making a big difference. Because I think at some point it's just one of these things where as you get more opportunities and whatever, and guys do get better like during the season when practicing and just like getting better run fits, with playing within the scheme better, just things click and guys start playing faster. Right. So I think he is somebody who could play a lot more as a season, like same with a guy like Junior Tuihalamaka, right? And also that's like dependent on like, I mean, JD Bertrand, he barely played really. He's going to go like basically out of the last 6 quarters, he played 5 of them, or no, he didn't, he missed 5 of them. So that's a lot. Right.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. Like you could see it, like suddenly you look up, it's like, man, Kollie's in there all the time. I mean, it's kind of like Ben Morrison, frankly. It's just like, hey, Ben Morrison,
that just happened.
Did he start the game? Like did he start? Like he's out there already. What's going on here? So it could be that kind of situation. I don't think Jack Kiser is in danger of losing his starting position. Just because they don't have who's the other rover,
Well, the other thing is that he technically when Bertrand is there, he's not starting, right? Because it's
well, because they're playing the nickel.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So he's not. I don't think Kiser's played well this year at all. And I do think like it's been a real adjustment for him playing inside.
Yeah.
Because I thought he did a fine job as outside as a rover in what he was, not when he was like asked to like carry a slot or something like that, but when he was in the regular base defense, he was fine. He was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Not like JOK good, but pretty good. So I think it's a bit of adjustment, and I don't know, maybe it's going to click for him, maybe it's not. And if it doesn't, that is the kind of opportunity where you're going to see some of these other guys maybe step up.
Yeah. Nick Hendrickson, Bauer is banged up. That's the other part too. It's like he's playing hurt, and he's got some stuff going on, or at least he did. So that you noticed that.
Well, you saw it too in remember he blocked the punt shoulder, right?
Yeah.
So that's something, right? That is something. But I mean, he's a guy who's, I mean, even if he's seriously hurt, he's probably never going to miss a game.
Right.
It's one of those guys.
Right. Michael McGowan, this is a good question. It's a good transition to the final topic of the show. And we're going to go deeper into BYU on Thursday. So you're going to want to listen to that for the BYU talk. But sensing a lot more confidence from you, was Marshall just an anomaly, or are there still significant concerns? Seems like O-line and running game are much better. So here's my take on this. And I was thinking about this coming out of the bye week, right? So this is Marcus Freeman's first bye. And he's got to navigate that and that sort of thing. And so that's kind of open question. Like, how is Notre Dame going to respond coming out of the bye? They were playing good football, obviously, going into it. And my take is, to me, the Marshall game is the Ohio State and Marshall game. The Notre Dame defensively, they played fine. Offensively, it was a mess, frankly. They didn't play well in either of those games on offense, and they played poorly. And they have since rebounded. They rebounded a bit against Cal, especially in the second half. And then obviously they look great against North Carolina. It's time for me. It's time they need to start like, okay, it's time to be a good football team. You know, it'd be one thing. Like, I think if Notre Dame was like 3-1, if they had beaten Marshall and they had played, well against, played okay against Cal, like the same way, played well against North Carolina, I could see this BYU game being a little bit dicey, just because I could feel like Notre Dame would feel like they're kind of above them, right?
Yeah.
Just didn't take them as seriously. But since you lost to Marshall, and since you also then didn't look great against Cal early, it's like you've already messed around. And played bad football. So now it's like I don't want to see like a bad performance at this point would just be, I don't want to say unacceptable, but it would be unacceptable. Like, it's time to be a good football team. Okay. It's time to start building off of, what you did against North Carolina, what you did in the second half against Cal. BYU is a good team. Okay. They're good. They have a good quarterback. They have good receivers. They're not terrible in any way, except for maybe run blocking, but they can pass block. Their defense isn't great. It's not horrible. Linebackers are pretty good. Secondary's okay. Good. Nice little team, right? Nice team, right? Probably overrated, but that's fine. It doesn't really matter. But like a good Notre Dame team that's playing well, they should handle BYU, right? And that's what I think needs to happen. Like, they can't, you can't say, they were kind of due for a bad game. No, they already had their bad games. Bad games are in the past, right? Against a team like this, they should play well and they should look good. And that's kind of my expectation. So I guess that's confidence going up. But what do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, and I think as you kind of like, as you look at where Notre Dame's at and where they've improved and things that they can build on and kind of like learning about their identity, I think you learn more about these other teams too. And what you kind of learn about like BYU is that, and every team that they're playing the rest of the way, is that every team is flawed. Like Notre Dame isn't playing Ohio State again, and even Ohio State's got some flaws. They don't have many, but they have a little, some stuck in there. But like some of these other teams have like big flaws, and BYU's got a couple of big flaws that can be exploited, right? And I think you saw that in the Baylor and the Oregon games, right? With the two best teams they played. And Baylor, as you learn too, they're not that good. And, that game went to overtime on the road for Baylor, right? Like, I think that like this is a game, like if Notre Dame plays like they did against North Carolina, I think they'll beat BYU by double digits, right? But I don't know that Notre Dame, the standard is going to be high every week. We don't know that yet. But I think Notre Dame is going to be they're an ascending team and going to get better. And I think now the floor is higher than it was because we've seen where they can get to. So I think, I mean, I don't think many people are going to pick, even though it could be a tight game. I don't think many people are going to pick Notre Dame to lose this game, and I certainly won't.
I agree with that. And just kind of on kind of the point, the assessment of the line, Blake Fisher can play to his potential. They could be elite. I thought Blake played his best game against North Carolina. I mean, frankly, they kind of all did, right? And that is reflected in the fact that the numbers, right, and the way that they played. But I have a question though. Do you feel like, because I feel like Blake had the biggest ask on the offensive line because he was supposed to play on the left, went to the right, and then he had to play, and then he transitioned coaches to Harry, and Harry, as we know, is very technical.
Played left all throughout high school.
Right, too, played left on high and everything, and so Harry's a very technical guy. So you're playing on the opposite side, and you're having to do like different techniques and stuff. So you're offhanded learning new technique. Does it make sense that it would take him longer than say like Joe Alt to, catch his stride and that sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, he's also playing beside Josh Lugg, who isn't as good as Jarrett Patterson.
Yeah.
So that's got something to do with it too, right? Like who you're playing beside and who you're working with and combo blocks and all that kind of stuff. Like, and not that I think that they are Lugg, and I think Fisher started to get into a pretty good groove, especially in the North Carolina game there. But I think it makes total sense that he was, not playing that well. And then also too, I think he was the kind of guy where I think Blake Fisher, if you look at kind of, especially when he came into Notre Dame, like he was automatically like the dude, right? Like he came in, he was going to start, and then all of a sudden you got to work back from this injury, and so he basically missed the entire year. Didn't really even practice last year, so he's like a year behind, really Alt, in a lot of ways, right? So, and he never had to deal with adversity before. He was always the dude, and now it's like now you got to deal with adversity. So I think the most positive thing was last game you saw him like effort wise, like running down 20 yards down the field to get an extra block and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you're doing that kind of thing, the technical stuff, all that else is going to come, and it's going to be there, and the talent is going to overtake everything. I'm pretty high in the offensive line the rest of the way. I think they're going to be really good the rest of the way.
Yeah, I agree. And so we saw evidence that Fisher's going to turn it around. And I think if he does, then there's no reason to think that like Alt's going to drop and play. Patterson, Carell is playing better now, and Lugg too. So I agree. I think if that situation is going to be settled, I think Notre Dame has the backs to really do damage. So that's kind of how I feel about it. All right, let's call it, Jamie. Let's call it a day.
Right.
We're at an hour. I think that was a good show. I think that's a good way to end it. So, okay, Thursday we're going to be back talking about BYU, getting more into that. We're going to have a little bit more information on the team and that sort of thing. So you're going to want to check that out. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. I really liked the chat. I thought the chat was lively. I thought people asked good questions. I thought people were polite and all those things. So I appreciate everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, to Trey Sense for joining the show for the first time. Always nice to have a first-time person. If you haven't already, hit subscribe button, hit the like button. You're going to want to check us out tomorrow. Are you guys doing the War Room tomorrow, Jamie?
I believe we are, unless Mike changes something on me, but he could do it.
Okay, we could have the War Room tomorrow. Yeah. You guys will be on that. I think it's 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. You're going to be talking about college football, other listener questions about the team and that sort of thing. You want to check that out. Thursday, we're going live. Post-game show on Saturday. I'll be on that with Mike and Jamie. Morning after show on Sunday. So we got a lot of good stuff coming for you. And you're going to want to check out Irish Sports Daily for all the latest on the team, recruiting, and all that stuff. So you're going to want to check us out. Thank you again, everybody. And we will talk to you again on Thursday.